Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the Glasgow Airport attack of 2007.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're going beyond just the what happened, and we're really going to try to dive into the how people reacted, the extraordinary stories that emerged from this. And to help us do this, we've got some Wikipedia entries to set the stage. We've got some news articles which were written like right when it happened, those raw, immediate reactions.
Yeah.
And we've even got some academic analysis.
Really?
Yeah, that shines a light on how the public kind of perceived everything that happened after the event.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really fascinating deep dive because we're not just looking at the attack itself, but the ripples it created.
Right.
You know, how this act of terrorism kind of impacted everything, from the way security measures were handled to individual lives.
Totally. It's like, when you throw a stone in a pond, the effects just go everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
So imagine this. It's a busy Saturday, June 30th, 2007, at Glasgow Airport. And out of nowhere, a Jeep Cherokee comes, barreling into the main terminal building. But this is no accident.
Oh, my goodness.
This Jeep is loaded with propane gas canisters, flammable materials. It was a real attempt to cause some damage.
And, to really understand how crazy this was, we have to think about what had happened the day before.
Right.
This was a foiled car bomb attempt in London's West End.
Oh, wow.
So the UK was already on edge, and this attack in Glasgow just took it up tenfold.
Totally, yeah. It's like everyone's just anxiety went through the roof.
Absolutely.
So who are these attackers and what were they after? Well, we know their names, right?
Yeah.
It was Kafil Ahmed and Bilal Abdullah.
Okay.
Now, Ahmed died a month later from really severe burns he got in the attack, but Abdullah was convicted and is serving a life sentence in prison.
And it's interesting because the investigation did link them to possible al-Qaeda figures in Pakistan, but the exact motives are still debated to this day.
Wow.
Some people believe it was a very ideologically driven attack inspired by al-Qaeda, while others point to some possible personal factors, maybe mental state issues with Ahmed, as contributing to their actions.
So it's even with a conviction, there are some questions that remain unanswered.
Yeah.
That's kind of chilling. Let's talk about the immediate aftermath, because, it must have been pure chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Injuries, fire, the whole airport is being evacuated.
Can you even imagine?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It was already an intense situation.
Yeah.
But it actually got even more intense when they thought that Ahmed might have a suicide belt. Yeah. And they ended up evacuating the entire hospital where he was being treated.
Wow, that's nuts.
So you can see how high the stakes felt. The fear of another attack was just palpable.
It's just incredible how something like this can have such a far-reaching impact. It's not just the initial attack, it's all the other things that come after.
Absolutely.
But here's where things start to get really interesting for me. Amidst all this chaos and fear, right, you see all these incredible acts of courage. Ordinary people became accidental heroes that day.
It's amazing the human capacity for bravery in the face of danger. It really is just amazing.
It is. Take John Smeaton.
Right.
He was a baggage handler. He just, without thinking, ran towards that burning Jeep to try to help fight off the attackers. His now famous words, "This is Glasgow, we'll set about you,"
I love that.
became a rallying cry for the whole city.
For the whole city.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't forget Alex McElveen, the taxi driver who kicked Ahmed despite tearing a tendon in his foot during the whole struggle.
Ouch.
It just shows you how people's instincts just kicked in and they refused to let fear paralyze them.
And there's so many more. You've got Michael Kerr, who fought back despite breaking his leg during the whole thing.
Jeez.
Stephen Clarkson and Henry Lambie.
Okay.
They also bravely confronted the attackers, putting their own safety on the line to help.
It really highlights that in these sorts of events, it's often the everyday people who find themselves kind of on the front lines.
Right.
And their responses can really make all the difference.
Absolutely. And what's even more awesome?
Yeah.
They were recognized for their bravery. Smeaton got the Queen's Gallantry Medal, and a bunch of others were given bravery awards for their actions.
Wow.
It just shows, even in the darkest moments, heroism can shine through.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Totally.
But, while some people reacted with this incredible bravery, the attack understandably sent shockwaves through the nation.
Right.
I mean, the UK's security threat level was immediately raised to critical, which is the highest level. They believed that another attack was imminent.
Oh, wow. So that must have been terrifying for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
But it really raises a big question.
Uh-huh.
How do we as a society find that balance between security and individual freedoms? It's a tough issue to grapple with.
I mean, this event really ignited a huge debate in the UK. You can see the range of reactions in some of the reader comments that we have from a Times Online article.
Oh, interesting.
Some people were like, we need tougher security measures, the death penalty for terrorists.
Wow.
Other people were just plain scared and urging everyone to just be super vigilant.
Yeah.
Then there were those who questioned if those measures were even effective, and they were worried about Islamophobia.
It really was a catalyst for a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
About tolerance and how a free society can stay open while facing these sorts of threats.
Right.
It's a really complex issue with no easy answers.
No.
But amidst all the seriousness, people found ways to laugh too.
Oh, yeah.
Especially about, Smeaton's now infamous words and actions. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of incredible how humor can help us cope, even in the face of something so scary.
Oh, it's a reminder that even in tragedy, humanity finds ways to persevere, to find those little glimmers of hope and even humor. Speaking of finding things, there was a really fascinating part of this deep dive, which is these shifting perceptions that kind of happened after the attack.
Okay.
There's this really interesting academic analysis by Martin Gallagher.
Okay.
And he looks at reports that were made to the Lothian and Borders Police.
Okay.
Which is the police force that covers Edinburgh in the weeks following the Glasgow attack.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What did he find?
Well, his findings are actually pretty surprising.
Okay.
A significant percentage of the reports the police received were actually focused on individuals of Asian ethnicity.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it raises concerns about racial profiling and how fear can distort our perceptions and lead to unfair judgments.
Yeah, that's eye-opening. I didn't realize how much an event like this could shape public perception.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't even considered.
It is a very sobering reminder that, in times of uncertainty and fear, our biases can become magnified and sometimes even lead to discriminatory actions.
So how did this happen? Was it just like a natural reaction to the attack, or were there other factors in play?
Well, Gallagher actually suggests that the media might have played a role in shaping those perceptions.
Okay.
Think about it. The constant coverage, the way certain details are emphasized, even the language that's used.
Right.
It can all subtly influence how we see the world and interact with each other.
That makes sense. We're bombarded with so much information after these events that it's easy to just get swept up in whatever narrative is being presented, even if it's not entirely accurate or fair.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for things like community relations and counterterrorism efforts.
Yeah.
If our attention is being misdirected based on prejudice, it not only damages social cohesion, but also hinders effective security measures.
It really makes you think about how important it is to just be aware of our own biases.
Yeah.
And to be critical of the media we consume.
Absolutely.
We can't let fear dictate our actions and drive these wedges between communities.
That's a really powerful takeaway. We need to be vigilant, not in a way that breeds paranoia, but in a way that empowers us to be aware, think critically, and to act with caution and compassion.
Yeah, it's a constant challenge, isn't it? Balancing that need for security and freedom and making sure that, our response to these events isn't inadvertently creating more division.
Right.
And, all of this is happening just as Gordon Brown's stepping into his role as prime minister.
Talk about a baptism by fire.
Oh, absolutely.
This attack must have put immense pressure on his government to show strength and resolve.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a defining moment for his leadership. And, the government's response was swift and multifaceted.
Okay.
They immediately increased security at airports and other crowded areas across the UK.
Okay.
And there were even discussions about deploying troops to help with security, which really highlights that sense of urgency.
Wow, that's serious. And the heightened threat level.
Yeah, it sounds like they were pulling out all the stops.
They were leaving no stone unturned.
Yeah.
They also launched a full-scale investigation, working with authorities in London to uncover any potential links between this attack and the attempted bombings in London.
All right.
It was a massive undertaking involving international cooperation, intelligence sharing.
It just shows how complex these investigations can be. You're not just looking at one event in isolation. You're trying to piece together a bigger picture, often with international implications.
Yeah, terrorism is a global threat, and tackling it effectively requires, a coordinated and unified response.
Right.
It's about connecting the dots, sharing intelligence, and working together to prevent these attacks in the future.
Yeah.
It really is fascinating to see how this one event in Glasgow just triggered this wide-ranging response, both domestically and internationally.
It makes you realize we're all interconnected in ways we don't always consider.
Oh, absolutely.
But, in the midst of all these security measures, the political maneuvering, let's not forget about the human cost of this attack.
Of course.
I mean, thankfully there were no fatalities apart from one of the attackers, but the emotional and psychological impact on the people who witnessed this must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. The trauma of witnessing something like that, the fear, the uncertainty, those things can have lasting effects.
Right.
It's so essential to acknowledge and address the kind of invisible scars left behind by these acts of terrorism.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that behind the headlines and all the political debates, there are real people whose lives were forever changed by this.
Totally.
Their stories matter.
They really do, yeah.
Taking a step back and looking at everything that happened, the attack, the response, the heroic actions, the public reaction, it paints this vivid picture of a society that's grappling with a very complex threat.
It really does.
And it makes you think about those bigger questions, doesn't it? How do we balance security with freedom? How do we combat terrorism without sacrificing our values? How do we foster this resilience and unity in the face of fear and division?
These are really important questions that don't have easy answers.
Right.
But they are essential to consider, especially as we navigate a world where these threats continue to evolve and emerge in new and unexpected ways.
Yeah, it feels like a constant balancing act. Trying to stay informed and aware, but not letting fear completely take over.
It's a reminder that the fight against terrorism is not just about governments and security forces, it's about all of us.
Right.
We all have a role to play in building a safer and more resilient society.
Yeah, it's about coming together, supporting each other, and choosing hope over fear.
Absolutely.
It's kind of incredible to think it's been over 15 years since this attack happened.
I know.
And yet its impact continues to resonate today.
It does. It's a reminder of the human capacity for both darkness and light. We've seen the devastating potential of terrorism, but we've also witnessed incredible acts of bravery, resilience, and compassion.
It's almost like a paradox, how an event that aimed to divide us actually revealed our strength and unity.
Yeah, and that's what makes studying these events so important. It's not just about recounting the facts, but about understanding the broader context, the human impact, and the enduring lessons we can learn from such events.
Right.
It's about remembering the past, not to dwell in fear, but to inform our present and shape a more resilient and hopeful future.
As we've been going through all of this, one thing keeps coming back to me.
What's that?
It's like all the what ifs.
Right.
What if the attackers had actually managed to detonate that bomb?
Yeah.
What if those brave bystanders hadn't stepped in?
It's hard not to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
The potential for a much larger tragedy was very real.
It was.
That Jeep Cherokee, remember, packed with all those flammable materials, the propane canisters.
Yeah.
It's chilling to think about what could happen.
Yeah. The actions of those Good Samaritans, as they were called, were nothing short of heroic.
Oh, absolutely.
They literally stopped a potential disaster.
Totally.
Imagine if those attackers had breached the terminal during, peak travel time.
It's almost too awful to even think about.
Yeah.
But it really highlights something we often overlook.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the ordinary people, the ones just going about their day, that end up making the most extraordinary difference.
They weren't trained security,
Right.
They didn't wake up that morning thinking they were going to be confronting terrorists.
Exactly.
They just acted bravely, putting themselves at risk to protect others.
It's truly inspiring.
It is. It really is.
Their stories are such a powerful reminder that we all have that potential for courage and selflessness within us.
Right.
We might not know when we'll be called upon to act.
Yeah.
But the Glasgow Airport attack shows that ordinary people can rise to the occasion in incredible ways.
It really does give you hope. To know that, even in the face of such darkness, there's still so much good in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Another thing that struck me while looking at all these sources was the sense of unity that emerged after, obviously there were lots of diverse and sometimes conflicting opinions.
Of course.
But there was this shared sense of shock, grief, and this determination to stand together.
I totally noticed that too.
Yeah, it's like the attack, as horrible as it was, it also brought people closer.
Exactly, because these acts of terrorism are designed to sow fear and division, right?
Yeah.
But they often have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
They galvanize communities, strengthen those bonds, and reinforce this collective sense of resilience.
People from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different beliefs, all came together to help, to comfort each other, to rebuild.
Exactly.
And through that shared experience, they forged a much stronger community.
It's the power of the human spirit to find that strength and unity in the face of adversity. It reminds us that at our core, we're social creatures.
We are.
And we need each other, especially during the tough times.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Glasgow Airport attack, what are your big takeaways for our listener?
There's so many.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple key things to really consider. First, we have to keep in mind that human element.
Right.
We've seen how devastating terrorism can be, but we've also seen this extraordinary bravery and resilience that ordinary people are capable of.
Totally.
Second, the importance of vigilance. Not in a way that creates paranoia, but in a way that empowers us to be aware of our surroundings,
Right.
to report anything suspicious.
Yeah.
And finally, the need for unity and understanding.
Yeah.
Recognizing that a cohesive society is truly our strongest defense against fear and division.
It's about choosing hope over fear, courage over complacency, and unity over division. And maybe, just maybe, it's also about finding those everyday heroes, the ones who step up when it matters most, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope, courage, and the potential for good to triumph over evil.
As you go forward thinking about this deep dive, consider this. How do events like this shape our own understanding of risk and security? Does the media play a role in amplifying fear, or can it also promote resilience?
Because ultimately, knowledge is power.
It is.
And the more we understand about events like this, the better equipped we are to face the challenges of a complex world.
And who knows, maybe we'll all be inspired to be a little bit braver, a little bit kinder, and a little bit more united, no matter what challenges come our way.